Help the Morgans celebrate their 45th wedding anniversary. And before we get started on their slideshow, 45 years of married bliss.
Wait.
Jeez. I'm sorry.
I get the little one.
You've got the little one. Please sit down, sir.
Fits one out.
We'll start over again. I'm so sorry about that. The wrong notes. Listen, welcome and good evening. My name's Hank Hosenozzle, and I'll be your MC for tonight and also the presiding official for this evening's activities. You'll find this to be a rather odd sort of an event, but given who it's for, that shouldn't be surprising at all. A few of Guy's friends have put together a couple of words here that we will share with you this evening, and I'm hoping perhaps you've scheduled the babysitters for a whole night, and perhaps you might even be a little bit late for church tomorrow. I'm not sure, but hopefully you'll enjoy this. Surprising actually to see so many people, because I know when Rhonda first made her invitation phone calls, there were very few RSVPs. She thought, in fact, she was going to be able to get by with a keg or with a case of beer and a box of donuts, but she stuck with it, and I know made many other follow-up phone calls. I guess we can call them what they were, begging phone calls. I think it was on the third call that she finally convinced Don and Bernice to come.
Mom didn't get it.
I'm glad to see Arlie and Sharon Lyons here, and Gary and Marge Springer. I had to give Gary and Arlie $5 each to come. Tonight's proceedings are going to be in two segments. The first one, number one, since this event is at least in part a celebration of Guy's retirement, it's going to have the kind of the traditional comments and positive characteristics, those sorts of things. But we do have a second phase, and number two is, given the unusual and sometimes alarming nature of Guy's personal and professional behavior, it's necessary that tonight we conduct what we will call a sanity hearing. But we'll get started with segment number one, the positive characteristics. Can't think of any, so we'll go to phase two. Not really. Guy's a very generous person. He's always ready to pitch in if a friend or the community needs some help with something. Take, for instance, several years ago I was working on a project and I fell and broke a couple ribs in my back. Our driveway, for those of you that don't know where I live, is fairly long, and at that time we had a lot of chuck holes in the driveway. And I'm here to tell you that driving up and down our driveway was really, really painful. Well, I only took maybe one or two of those trips. The next thing I knew, those chuck holes were filled up. And I know the Guy was part of that. And then there were some others.
No, Guy didn't. That Guy wasn't there. That was Rob and I and Ivor. Guy wasn't there.
I'm sorry. I thought perhaps that he was. But there's another story where I'm sure the Guy was involved. My neighbor at the time was a fellow named Reno Koski, and he was haying. About this time of year, Reno had just baled. He had a whole field full of bales, and I'm not kidding you, the skies clouded up and it looked like it was going to pour. And I felt kind of bad for Reno at the time, so I got on the phone, called some of my friends, and said, we need to get this hay in before it turns loose. Well, Guy and some others showed up, and we got going, and we got the hay in there in good order, and Reno was really, really happy about that.
No. Guy was a no-show that day.
Well, I'm pretty sure on this one. Most of you are familiar with the fireworks display that used to be at Don and Bernice's, and the Buswell brothers were very, very involved with that. I mean, it started at noon, and I think stopped about noon the next day. But the thing of it is many of you know Arlie and Sharon Lyons live just down over the hill from Don and Bernice, and that was the launching point from up top of the hill. So the fires and the paper and the mess and the bottle rockets and things that wound up down at Arlie and Sharon's, they would take the next day, get some gunny sacks, go around and clean that up. And I know that Guy, being the good, helpful person that he is, that he was down there early that next morning helping them pick.
Come on, you're thinking of Alan.
Guy, you weren't there really. Well, never mind. Listen, I'm 0 for 3 at this point, but I know for a fact on this next one that Guy was there. Last summer, I helped Kyle Filla build a big shop out at his place. And I know Guy was there when we were setting the trusses, because as the boom truck came with the trusses, Guy was busy telling us all what we were supposed to be doing. And so I'm positive he was there for that. So.
He was there, but he didn't do much work. A lot of BSing with the crane operator and a lot of beer drinking.
Well, I know, but he said he was BSing with the operator, but I know he was helping him out in some way or another.
Well, after 5 minutes of watching him, he thought he knew how to run the show, so he was telling the crane operator what to do. The crane operator wasn't so happy, told him to leave, so then he just went and drank beer.
It's a hard crowd.
Well, I'm sure he's helped on a lot of other things, so let's move along. Guy's extremely bright.
What do you mean?
Help me out here, that's a joke. Seriously, he's knowledgeable on many, many things. If I was ever on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, there's no doubt at all that I would have Guy as one of my lifelines. If he didn't know the answer, he'd come up with some plausible bullshit that even Regis would believe. Let me give you a scenario.
Oh no.
Regis says to me, Hank, you're doing great. You've won $250,000. Your next question is worth $500,000. Here it is. How far is it between Earth and Pluto? Regis, I'd like to use a lifeline. Very well, who would you like to call? Well, I'd like to call my friend Guy Buswell. Well, let's get Mr. Buswell on the phone. Hello, Guy. Regis Philbin from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Well, I'm doing very well, thank you. But listen, I have your friend Hank Hosenozzle here, and, well, sure, I like to take a good sauna now and then. But your buddy Hank, he... Golf? No, sorry, but the wife and I are going to be visiting grandkids over the 4th. But Hank here... Well, good talking with you too. Here's Hank. Buzzy, here's the question. Listen, well, I'm fine, but we only have 30 seconds. Buzzy, 30 seconds. How far is it between Earth and Pluto? 30 seconds, Buzzy. Depends on which route you take. Now, if you use Jackson Highway and take the Spirit Lake cutoff, then out to 504, up 504 and hang a left on Weyerhaeuser 2500, it'll be 44.5 miles. Thanks, Buzzy. Are you sure? I'm positive. Regis, it's 44.5 miles. Well, you're absolutely right. So then, of course, I win $500,000 and Buzzy wants half of it. Tell me though, is there anybody you'd rather have as your lifeline if you were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Probably Leah.
Okay, but really, kidding aside, Buzzy really is smart and talented. I've learned so many valuable things from him over the years. I know many of you have too. He taught me how to bury kids in the sand and make them look like elephants or race cars or airplanes. True story. He taught me the best way to hold a cup of coffee when driving so as not to spill. Got to have that torsion bar elbow in there. Oh, he taught me, well, I know there was something else. He taught me how to drink a beer if there's a cop behind you. Everything you hear tonight's true. And see. Okay, so we've covered the positive characteristics. That brings us to segment 2, which is the serious portion of this evening's proceedings, the sanity hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether our patient, Guy Buswell, after 38 years of teaching, is insane. We have 3 levels of sanity by which a panel will be passing judgment on him this evening. Number 1, should he be released to society on his own? Should he be released in the care of his wife and children? Should we lock him up, thereby protecting society from a clearly unbalanced man? There might be other options available. In these proceedings, we won't be focusing on the patient's early years. Listen, we all know that Don and Bernice did the best they could. In fact, I would encourage you all at some point tonight to stop by and offer your understanding and sympathy to them. Instead, though, we'll explore several facets of his more current life. Here's how this hearing will be conducted. We'll hear testimony from character witnesses. They will present first-hand knowledge and evidence as to the lucidity of patient Buswell. His common outbursts of, "Go ahead, interrupt me," and his tendency to argue with everybody about everything won't be tolerated in this meeting. He will, however, be allowed to take notes As long as he doesn't do it that weird curled around left-handed sort of technique he usually uses. But not that it will do him any good. He will have a chance to present his point of view. Our member is Dr. Bruce Montaylor. He's the head of human control at the prestigious Safe at Home Treatment Center for Incurable Misfits. His motto is, if it's not one inning, it's another. These gentlemen have met the patient just for the first time just a few moments ago. They will listen to testimony, judge its truthfulness, and pass sentence at the conclusion of the hearing. With that said, let's begin. I'm going to call our first witness. Mr. Dennis Clark, please come forward. Mr. Clark, what would you like to share with the panel?
Well, I had the opportunity to watch Mr. Buswell in the classroom with his classroom management, watched it evolve. It kind of went from paddling, swatting, or hacking, and that became outlawed. And so then it went to skunking, and that was something. And then in the very end, it was just hollering, "Hey!" Go down and visit his shop. "Hey!" Mr. Buswell was always in control. When I see television, a television ad for the Beacon Plumbing Company out of Seattle with Marshawn Lynch, I always think of Buzz with when Marshawn says, "One, toilet has to come out." Or the person in the house says, "Toilet's haywire, got to come out." "Got it." Peeks into the sewer pipe out in the yard. "No problem." And then he breaks through the wall and says, "Stop freaking, call Beacon." Mr. Buswell is very much like Marshawn, always in control.
But Mr. Clark, isn't it true that there have been more than a few complaints about Mr. Buswell's harsh treatment of kids?
Well, yes, but those have usually been quite minor.
Did you ever have occasion to take corrective action regarding his classroom discipline?
Well, yes. And now that I think about it, Teacher Buswell was always a bigger discipline problem for me than the kids were.
Mr. Clark, I understand that you've been involved in the Cheese Days frog jump for many years.
That is correct. In fact, Mr. Buswell has helped procure frogs for several years.
Mr. Clark, isn't it also true that our patient caused a near tragedy on one such adventure?
Well, yes. That's also true.
That's what it sounded like, I swear.
After viewing that, Mr. Clark, would you agree that our patient is slightly unbalanced?
It sure looks like that.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. That'll be all. Patient Buswell, do you have a response? I don't know if you heard him. That's the first time I have ever heard that, and I expect the last time. He just said, "I don't know what I could say." Very well, we'll call our next witness. Our next witness is Terry Holmes. Mr. Holmes, as the Toledo High School athletic director, you had some supervisory responsibilities for the patient. Is that correct?
I certainly did.
What would you like to share with our panel?
Well, he's a great teacher, a great staff member, very reliable. Except for the burn injury he had several years ago, I don't think he ever missed a day of school.
But Mr. Holmes, isn't it true that he was recently absent from several required teachers' meetings?
Yeah, that is true, but in recognition of his many years of service to our district and his imminent retirement, we excused him from those meetings.
Isn't it also true that his raucous and disruptive behavior is the real reason you excused him?
Well,
thank you, Mr. Holmes. That'll be all. Patient Buswell, would you like to respond? Yeah. Our next witness to testify will be Mr. Gary Springer. Mr. Springer, what's your relationship with the patient?
Well, I've been a long time a family friend and hunting partner of his. He started hunting at an early age. That's pretty early. That's pretty early. Over the years, I've been present when he was bagging several elk. I can tell you he is a great hunter and a good packer.
Well, thank you, Mr. Springer, but isn't it also true that you usually don't have to pack the elk? You just use the motor?
Well, that's pretty true. A lot of the times, that's true. In fact, the time.
And isn't it also true that two of those elk were bagged were in the same season?
Wow. Well, I'll take the Fifth Amendment on that.
Mr. Springer, because you gave me my first real job at Toledo, I withdraw the question.
Mr. Springer, I hate to be so hard on you, especially since you are the man whose advice got me my first teaching job. But we simply must get to the bottom of this. Is it true that on one occasion, after consuming several beers, patient Buswell face planted while notching his elk tag?
Mr. Springer, isn't it also true that he missed with several shots before hitting the elk?
Yeah, he generally takes 2 or 3 shots before it gets things sighted in.
Then he blamed factory-loaded ammunition instead of the beer?
Well, he does prefer Allen's reloaded ammo. He blames it on bad factory things and things like that, but he likes Allen's ammo, and he wastes a lot of it too.
Thank you, Mr. Springer. You've been very helpful.
I'm sure. Thank you. I did my best.
Patient Buswell, a response? Let the record show he remains speechless. Our next witness is Mick Phillip. Mr. Phillip, can you shed some light on our patient's mental fitness?
I think I can. Well, he's always eager to try new things, and he's really tough.
How so, Mick?
Well, some years ago, a guy wanted to learn to ride a motorcycle. He joined a group of us climbing Dobosh Hill, a very steep and long hill out here west of Toledo. When his term came, for some reason, instead of going all the way up the hill, he turned and started down. Then he got off the bike and started to run alongside of it and accidentally hit the throttle. Well, you can imagine what happened then. The next thing we knew, the guy on the motorcycle were tumbling down the hill end over end to the bottom. We rushed over to where he was laying in a daze. His bib overalls were shredded. They looked like a hula skirt, in fact. Sustained numerous cuts and bruises and broke his ring finger. His ring finger became so badly swollen, his wedding band had to be cut off. I think it would have nearly killed most people, but not Guy. Needless to say, that was Big Buzzy's last hill climb.
Mr. Phillip, wouldn't you agree that patient Buswell is totally out of control?
Well, it would seem so.
A couple more things, Mr. Phillip. One more thing. We understand that you are also, on occasion, a hunting partner of patient Buswell. Perhaps you can tell us a bit more about his hunting abilities.
Well, let's see. He once hunted all day, didn't see a thing, but on his way home he hit a buck with his pickup. The poor thing was briefly caught under his truck.
Is it true? Is it true that patient Buswell grabbed his rifle, jumped out of the pickup, and tried to shoot the buck? After 4 shots, the only thing that he hit was his front tire. And then he blamed his poor marksmanship on that factory loaded.
Well, yes, he likes to shoot Allen's reloads.
While we're on the subject of hunting, Mr. Phillip, have you heard the rumor that after being unsuccessful for several days, our patient shot Lisa Rockos' barnyard pet deer? Mr. Phillip, I need an answer.
I think it was just a rumor.
Thank you, Mr. Phillip. You may take the seat.
Sorry, Lisa.
Patient Buswell, would you like to respond to that testimony? Okay, once again, silence. Our next witness, Alan Buswell. Mr. Buswell, how long have you known our patient?
All my life.
Panel, you may proceed with your questioning.
I'll start, Alan. You said you have known the patient all your life. Can we assume that he's your brother or perhaps your father?
He looks a lot older. But he's not my dad. He is my brother.
Some say. In any case, you should be able to explain some of the disturbing things we've been hearing about him.
He's been a little odd for as long as I can remember.
But I blame myself. I did it.
Why would you blame yourself?
When I was this little kid, he is older than I am, you know, and he was trying to teach me how to golf, how to hit a golf ball, because he is a great golfer. Well, he was teaching me, and I cold cocked him with a 7-iron. He went to the hospital for 8 days and got a transistor radio.
Is that true? That's true? Oh my God.
all true.
Dad bought me a transistor radio.
But can you elaborate a little bit more, according to you, why he's a little odd?
Well, I think it's because I hit him in the head with a golf club.
You said that he's an excellent golfer. How is that even possible?
He drives the ball a ton. Sometimes it goes into the rough a little, but it's always a good lie. That means it's in a good position for his next shot. And when he hits on the green, he very seldom ever three putts. We golf in the league, and he always has the lowest score.
Mr. Buswell, are you being totally honest with us?
How do you think I always lost all my hair? If I tell the truth, he'll give me another Dutch rub.
Thank you, Mr. Boswell. Patient Boswell, would you like to respond to that testimony? The next witness to address the panel is John Sanford.
Really, John, good luck in making it through this, Buzzy. There's not much chance for this happening.
My mother said make it through.
My wife made me wear the shirt so she can keep track of me.
Mr. Sanford, please share your impressions of our patient.
He's a great friend, a great father, fastidious homeowner, so-so golfer. I think he's the best golfer in Toledo. Always working around the house and grounds, mowing, trimming, painting, things like that. When he and his wife, Rhonda, hosted Tessa's wedding at their home, he was working long hours, daylight till dark, getting places shipshape. He was mowing for weeding for the brakes failed on his mower, and he was serious accident. Brake failure. Happy brake failure. I think that is correct. I think that's correct.
I heard he was doing a little drinking and golfing all that morning.
You said the brakes failed?
Don't we have some video of that accident?
Mr. Sanford, you said the brakes failed, but isn't it true that Sears checked the brakes? And after the accident, they were in perfect working order?
Yeah, I think that was correct.
Isn't it possible that he merely staged the accident and faked trying to get out of the work preparing for Tessa's wedding?
Well, I don't know, but come to think of it, several others than I did do all the work.
Mr. Sanford, one more question. Is it true that even after patient Buswell tried to sue Sears for a new mower, the Crashmobile looks and works fine to this very day?
That looked pretty good, doesn't it?
That'll be all, Mr. Sanford. Thank you very much. Patient Buswell, any response? Okay, that's enough. Listen, I feel a little bit bad here. The positive testimony of these witnesses has been twisted a little bit to present a bit of a negative picture. And I want to point out that our patient, aside from a few flaws, is a pretty good person. I came across a poem that I think epitomizes his planning, leadership, semi-law abiding citizenship qualities. Let me read it to you. 'Twas one night on the Cowlitz, and all through the current, the smelt, they were sober, but the boys round the fire weren't. Nets were stowed in trucks, the fire stoked with care. The boys laughed and sang, but Springer wasn't there. Now why didn't he show, this community pillar man? The boys would make him pay. They hatched a devious plan. Said one of these plotters, we'll call him Big Boom, fireworks is the answer. We'll spread havoc and gloom. Now the boys left the river and headed east to the prairie. They'd get their revenge on this so-called friend Gary. They had firecrackers, M80s, bottle rockets, and more. Big Boom brought the finale, known as Black Powder Galore. The smoke and the light was outrageous. The noise was a fright. With fear, chaos, and confusion awoke the man and his wife.
Sorry, Gary.
Then came the finale. With shock, awe, and doom, the black powder ignited. And so did Big Boom. Well, panel, I believe you've heard sufficient testimony to make a determination of patient Buswell's fate. So if you will, please begin your deliberations. Listen, while they're discussing the case, I'll give you an epilogue of that fireworks fiasco. Short time after that night, Big Boom and the boys received a note that said, when the sun's in your face and the wind's at your back, the old Indian's gonna strike. Big Boom held such fear that at the sound of a noise outside the house or at the occasional power outage, he would run outside, run around the yard and yell, "Springer! I know you're out here!" His paranoia was such that he even installed a trail cam in the yard. Here are a few pics that we snuck from his camera. Well, I guess you'd expect to find his dog in the yard. still doing there at 2 in the morning? That's interesting. If incarcerated or restricted by wife and kids, our community will be deprived of its main source of entertainment. And without a local theater, we just can't allow that. Insane or not, Big Buzz is set free. Well, I think our job here is finished. Sergeant at Arms, thank you very much. Don and Bernice, you're awesome. Thank you for such a great person and a great friend. Rhonda, condolences. Probably going to be around the house a whole lot more now. Buzzy, our friend, congratulations. This mic is yours.
I don't know where's my paper? Hey, seriously, thank you. I mean, these guys, they put together a fantastic show, and I'd like to give them a little round up. And more than that, thank all of you people out here, parents, family, friends, brothers, cousins, grandkid. It's been really wonderful tonight. Thanks so much for all you guys coming out here. It's been a hell of a ride being here at Toledo, and I've had some of the most awesome.
Buzwell! Buzwell! We lost the prize!